Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for those who have passed away in our community, especially James Hughes. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Smurl?
Here. Dispense with the minutes of the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, correspondence received from City Business Administration on March 13, 2024, regarding payroll preparation tax collections as of March 12, 2024. 3B, Scranton Parking System update from Grow America, formerly NDC, received March 11, 2024. 3C, Controller's Report for the month ending February 29, 2024.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have a quick one. There's going to be a get-together for Gilmartin. This will be for Detective Kyle Gilmartin this Saturday, March 23rd, from 4 until 8 p.m. at the Waldorf Park up on East Mountain. There'll be entertainment, basket, raffles, 50-50, pasta, meatball, salad, roll, and it's $15. And obviously all the proceeds will go to Detective Gilmartin and his family. So that's Saturday, the 23rd, from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Waldorf. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Another announcement, the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail Cleanup is going to be having a cleanup this Saturday, March 23rd, starting at South 7th Ave in Scranton. It's going to start at 8:30 a.m. across the street from the Sunoco, and tools will be provided, so the only thing you need to bring is some hand protection.
Thank you. Okay.
Fourth order, citizen participation.
First, Joan Hodowanis.
John Horwath, Scranton. Before I say anything else, I just want to remind everybody that the Library Express in the marketplace at Steamtown will close on April 30th. And all the items in there that are for sale are 40% off. So if you are looking for gifts for birthdays or even for Christmas, you can go in there and start packing that up. I checked the city's website again today. Union contracts for the firefighters and the police are still not there. The contract for the firefighters, 351 days old. Police is 235 days. I have to believe that the administration has no intention of getting those documents on the website. I wonder why. I'd love to see them. I also noted in the controller's report for February that Ufberg was paid over $40,000. I assume that's for his work on dotting the I's and crossing the T's. It's been going on for a while now. You know, my next incarnation, I think I'm going to come back as a labor council. That's where the money is. The RFP for financial forecasting, the deadline was February 29th. Has any word come down on whom they might award that contract to? No? Not yet? Okay. Speaking of finances, I remember when PFM was here for their presentation on the $36.2 million refinancing of debt. They said that by mid-March, the new interest rates should be locked in. Have we had any feedback on what kind of interest rate we may be looking at for that $36.2 million loan?
Not as of today.
Okay. Although we are in a good position with our bond rating, so that should help. Have we had any information on the beginning of the 2023 audit? That should be well underway by now. Nothing?
At the last finance meeting, yes, they did discuss it is underway, but we
Okay.
didn't get into it too much.
Okay. Also, if I recall, during a prior meeting, when the chief of police was here, he mentioned that personnel staffing in the police department, operational staffing was at 80%. Have we had any success in increasing our staffing in the police department? Or are we still at 80% operationally?
Yeah, that I don't know, Joan. Mark, have you heard anything from the
The
chief?
only thing I heard the last time I sat down with the chief was that they were recruiting well.
There were what?
Recruiting well.
Okay.
With regards to numbers, I didn't get any at that
Yeah.
time.
Well, I mean, concerning, the challenges that all police departments face, and we've had recently, the incidents involving gangs here, it's not good to ask, people to perform a mission when you don't give them the resources. So it's very important that we get the staffing up to par if we can do that. You take risks, and it's not only a risk to the personnel that are in the police department or the fire department, it's risks to the residents of the city. So I do hope we can get that turned around. I know recruiting is an issue nationwide, and I understand that. But I want to see our people protected, and I want to see our police officers, given the manpower, they need to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Margavich?
Good evening, Council. So with the rental ordinance of 2022, Mr. Smurl, I just had a quick question. I know you didn't get to vote on it. Would you have passed that? Would you have been a yes for that ordinance?
On the what, the rental
2022, it was
registration?
1 week before you were appointed. I was just wondering, would you have passed that rental ordinance?
I didn't read it, so I'd have
okay.
to look at it.
Never mind. Okay. Anyway, back to the rental registration. In regards, anyone hear anything about back years prior to the 2022 passing on
So,
November
last-
21st?
What I can tell you is last week I inquired about it because I thought I remembered something with regards to that. Nothing in writing. I just kind of thought I remembered some conversation. Couldn't find it in the meeting in the minutes.
Okay.
But Mr. Voldenberg researched it, and so did Solicitor Gilbride. So they couldn't find anything either.
Nothing yet? Okay. All right. I did have my court hearing, did get a continuance, so I think the city is still trying to find the correct way to enforce that as well. So, so hopefully they have something. In the meantime, what I did with mine is I actually opened up an escrow account where I put my rental registration money in the account until we can figure out what is going to be charged and do it equally. I'm not looking to pay anything less than I owe, but I'm certainly not going to pay any more on a flat fee that anyone else has to pay. Now, I would like to ask you all a question. In regards to, we're just going to have a hypothetical. Each one of you have been elected the next mayor. And as your first job is going to appoint the directors. So my question to you guys, if Mr. Oleski, and I don't mean to disclude Dr. Rothchild, but Mr. Oleski, if he was interested in staying at licensing and inspection, would any of you consider him for his current position? I'm just curious to see where you all stand with Mr. Oleski.
You don't have to worry about me ever becoming the mayor, so I have no comment.
But just in case.
Yeah, it's hypothetical. I'm not going to answer about a
No one's
personal
going
issue in a
to, no one's going to support for, I'm just curious if anyone would put themselves out there.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure where I would go with that position if
Okay.
I was
Well, thank you for,
the next mayor.
thank you for answering that. Because it's not a grudge I have against Mr. Oleski, but what you have to understand is when he did that to me 13 years ago, and he had a very big hand in it, I had a 5-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old at home, and he shut me down. I'm sure there was never any mention of the electrical violation that they had done to me. I still never got an answer, but there really isn't one. And I think it's better for the city if we move away from these unethical people that are in leadership positions. I think it's going to relieve a big burden for the city. Now, on a positive note, I do want to give you guys credit last week for making a motion for the legislation for the distance around the schools. And Mr. King, I do thank you because it's a great idea, but we also have to make sure we do it the correct way, where we don't have lawsuits against the city. So we don't want to violate anyone. So that is definitely good. And I guess my last topic would be on the internal investigation that's being done. What's the latest on that internal investigation, if anyone knows of anything? No one knows of anything?
It's not our investigation. I don't know. I would ask the administration.
What's interesting is, I've been trying to reach them since March of '23 about my concerns about Mr. Oleski. You would think I'd be maybe a point of contact for them during their investigation, but yet here we are. So there is also what's very concerning, and a lot of the gallery and probably students at home don't know about, and I happen to have some inside information as well as you guys up there do, is the text message from one code enforcement official to another, where it flat out calls Mr. Oleski's misconduct in that message. And for the life of me, it's pretty plain as day what's going on there. And I just can't understand why we aren't taking action on this. And I'm sure everyone knows up there what I'm speaking about, I'm assuming, right? The text message from one code enforcement official to another? Well, if not, I guess we'll have picture time next week. Thank you.
Brian Skutnik?
So I'll just start where Mark left off there, since we want to act like we don't know anything. As far as that text goes, you both got an email. All of you got an email twice about it from the inspector. I have it sitting back there if anybody needs a copy to refresh themselves on what you were already told by the inspector. So you do know about the texts. But if you want to refresh it, how it was an inspector texted someone else that a citizen got a stop work order, texted Mr. Oleski and said, "What do I do?" Tommy referred them to a specific contractor and said, "Hey, just give this guy a call." The guy finished all his work over the weekend. The contractor pulls a permit for him on Monday after the job's done. But no corruption there, right? So then we'll get back to the garage, since we want to act like we don't know anything about that. So not last week, the week before, we'll go to you, Smurl, since you wanted to deny it. Originally, you said you don't know about the garage. Then there was pictures that says, "Hey, there's your truck in the garage," right? And then the week after, every time it was brought up, you tried to say, "Well, it's not his garage." Sound about right?
I didn't say it wasn't his garage. I said it wasn't. I don't believe it was his business.
Okay, so then we'll go by the city ordinance of it, right? City ordinance says, though, if there is no owner, there's no business license, where do the fines revert to? Where do they revert?
Let me know.
They revert back to the homeowner.
Well, there you go.
So it goes to the property owner, right? That's the city ordinance. We could go and we could shut down, I think his name was David Etzel. We could shut down his garage and bury him in fines for the exact same business. But we're not going to shut down the one that the code enforcement director has at his own house.
Did you say Dave Edsel was shut down by the city?
It was that he came here and spoke, his garage was shut down, and he was buried in like $10,000 in fines.
Oh, okay.
And then he went to Central Court, everything got out of it, I know.
Okay.
He came here and spoke a couple weeks ago to you guys, I'm sure you remember, it was over Manuka. So Tom Oleski will go shut down his business, but it's okay for him to run the same business. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh, I don't know if he was shut down by the city.
He was shut down by the city.
Well, I'd have to check that to be fact.
He had all the paperwork, you guys didn't want to see it. It's also right to know information. Obviously, the city's going to say they don't know where it is, they can't find it. When the state calls them out and says you're a liar, stop lying on sworn statements, they're going to say, oh, well, we miraculously found it, because that's what your right to know officer does. But the business at Oleski's house, for starters, I reached out to somebody I knew that's a criminal investigator over at the IRS so that they could open a complaint on it. Miraculously, there's no EIN number that says he has a business. So what's that? It's okay for the director to have 5 years of tax evasion? Does that sound at all appropriate?
If you're claiming it's his business, I don't know.
It's his
I don't believe
property.
it is.
Look up the deed. You need a copy of that? Do I have to do your job for you? Like, what are you appointed for? You can't look at a deed?
I'm appointed for legislation, not to judge.
Then make
this
legislation that says if you are a public or a city official, you have to be honest. Like, is that a legislation we need? Don't be corrupt. We have to put a rule out there? We didn't learn anything from Bill Courtwright? But he was under Bill Courtwright's administration. Why didn't we get rid of him? I mean, if there's a garage at his house going on that's an illegal business, possible tax evasion, realistically, it would fall as constructive possession. Your attorney could vouch for that. He knows about the business. He has a willingness to allow the business. You know what I mean? It's just like the race car sponsors that we have contracts with in the city. Does that make any sense? No? So it's just, nothing's making sense here. Nobody wants to answer for it. You can make legislation, like we really need rules that says that you have to not lie to the citizens, or you have to pass a background check isn't one of them. Did we look at the can situation from last week? It's okay to use a city car to pick up beer kegs at the U? We need legislation for that? No? Anybody? Does anybody speak? It's like crickets up there, right? You don't see a problem with that? Does anybody see a problem with that? That's a question. Do I? No?
I don't know if it's part of the investigation, so I really don't want to respond.
You want to know where your investigation's at? I'll tell you.
No, I don't want to respond to it if some of this is part of the investigation.
So I'll let you know where your investigation is at by the city. Your city hired an investigator. The first one decided to turn around and said, I can't do it because I'm already suing you on behalf of a citizen. So they hired a second one that's miraculously using the office of the person that represents the city to do his meetings, but he doesn't show up to the meeting against where the investigation started. So the person that wrote the 7-page letter telling you what's going on, your attorney doing the investigation didn't show up for his own meeting. So, I mean, is it really a bias investigation if he's not going to show up to where the people are going to talk? I mean, he sounds like he should just have a job at city administration if he's not going to talk to the citizens.
Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident homeowner. Last week I came down to register my rental property, which I live at. And I said to the woman, I don't have to pay, right, because I live there. She says, no, you also have to have a relative live on the other side, which my daughter does. So, but I disagree with that. The way I read it is if I'm the only one that has to live there. I don't have somebody else have to live there. Oh, do you know which way it is?
I believe it's a family member, you don't pay a rental registration fee.
Yeah, but she said I have to live there plus a family member on the other side. That's not the way I read the ordinance. So am I right or is she right? You people passed the ordinance. Mm-hmm. So how does it read?
The answer that you got was that the renter that's renting your property also has to be a relative?
Yeah.
Okay, I do know you have to register the property, although.
Oh, yeah, I registered it, but as long as I live there, I'm under the impression I'm the only one that has to live there to not have to pay.
We'll
She
find
said,
out.
no, you have to have a relative on the other side also. It's just not the way I read the ordinance. So I don't know if I'm reading it wrong, but, so,
Yeah, we'll get an answer for you on that one.
well, you can bring up the ordinance on your computer right now. Moving on. Last Friday, I was driving over Lackawanna Avenue. I was at the traffic light at Adams and Lackawanna, and I looked just past where there's a first building there. It used to be Missouri Dental. I don't know if it is anymore. There's a high wall just past there. I really never took notice. That wall's a disgrace. It's filthy dirty. There's cracks in it. I know Streetscape is supposed to do something on that block. They're supposed to fix the wall that's by the Radisson. Do you know if they're going to do anything with that other wall? That either has to be painted over, or maybe we can get somebody to put a mural there. But it's an eyesore. It's terrible looking. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. It's really ugly. So
Is it Lackawanna Ave site, or is it the Adams Ave site?
it's on the side of the Radisson.
Lackawanna Ave, okay.
Next thing, last time I was here, I talked about the Times Tribune. There's nothing in the paper anymore. So I'm a sports fan. You open the sports section, all there is high school sports. No professional sports, no scores. So I've been a subscriber for years and years and years. I'm seriously thinking of dropping my subscription. I think this is a perfect time for somebody to open up a new newspaper in this city, because I think people would jump on board and leave the Times Tribune, because there's nothing in that paper anymore. With a 7:30 deadline, there's no sports. As I said, it's just high school. And I'm not a high school fan. I like college and pros. And there's no news after 7:30. I don't know if any of you get the paper, but it's like half the size it used to be. So it's a perfect time for somebody to start a new newspaper. As I said, I would definitely jump on board. Lastly, people come to this podium and bash President Biden, says he's not of sound mind. Well, if they watch the State of the Union address, I thought he was pretty good. And he showed me that he's really of sound mind, and he did a heck of a job. And he really gave it to the Republicans that night. And, I think he's a very sound mind. And, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thanks. Ron Ellman?
I'm sorry, I thought I was under Lee. Well, sorrowfully and embarrassed again, I admit I often plagiarize comments from others because they don't want the stigma of coming down here and having harsh words about anything, and besides that, almost everybody's mad at me anyway. But the other day at Quinn's Market, I ran into 2 or 3 allies finally that come to the conclusion like me about this $300,000 low-income property of Cartwheel and Ace. According to their own guidelines, it's a complete impossibility for any low-income family to rent it, pay utilities and rent, all the expense like insurance and so on will be skyrocketing for a $300,000 property. It seems like where this is heading is for the taxpayers of this city and county to have to subsidize this whole deal. And that comes from some intelligent people that in the real estate circles. That's all we need. You people must stop this from happening to the taxpayers here in the county. There's no other way they can rent this place. For $300,000, they could have had 5 or 6 homes upgraded, single-family homes around town that are on the tax list and so forth. This was just nothing but a monumental waste, for God's sake. I think Mr. Cockrell and Ace have taken advantage of a bunch of gullible, naive contributors. That's why nobody likes me for statements like that, you know. And then the mayor made a statement that we need more housing like this. We don't. We don't need low-income housing in the city. Low-income housing brings undesirable people. Look what has happened to my neighborhood in North Main. It is probably half, the property probably worth half what it was when I bought my house. It's just terrible. Last Tuesday night when I left here, there was 9 cars completely on the sidewalk from Market Street to my house. These are your children in the street because of illegal cars in front of illegal boarding houses, and nothing's done. We have a code enforcement that is completely useless. Last week they sent me a letter, the second one. My door is being blocked by some things. It's not a door, it's a window. If the lady had gotten out of her car and just moved a few feet, she could see it's a window. There's no doorknob or nothing. Inside the house, when I bought it, it's sheetrocked with a window. That's the kind of code enforcement people that they get. You know, for 20 years, I guess, I've been coming down here. Nobody ever listens. I hear such good suggestions and comments from people. It just doesn't go nowhere. I think it's time the city of Scranton taxpayers start really thinking serious about a new mayor. We need somebody that has lived and worked in this town the past 5 or 10 years, that knows the town and the neighborhoods and the people, not someone from 3,000 miles away. Thank you.
Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. The first thing I have here is I'd like to give the residents of the city my phone number. It's 570-604-1212. And I'd appreciate anybody in the city who's had a problem with licensing and inspections to either send me a text or call me. I really think we have to find a solutions to the problems we have. I don't think the council is capable. I missed last week's meeting because I met with the Republicans over here in Lower South Side, I guess, trying to stand up a city Republican Party maybe to run in an election, because we definitely need a change in this city. You know, I just find that what's going on here is completely wrong. You know, Mr. Smurl, I don't know why the mayor appointed you to council. In my own opinion, and it's only my own, I think you did the mayor a favor by taking down the slide. And she knew there was going to be a vacancy on the council, and she appointed you to it. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. But your indifference to the suffering of the residents of this city, all 5 council members talking that you're legislators, we've gone through that already. The Home Rule Charter gives you a right to do investigations. You shirk your duty to the taxpayers and the residents of the city. And you know, when you can take all the money you want to and you can invest it in low-income housing, and nobody's against people being poor, because a lot of us were poor when we were children. But you know, you have to face the reality. The city's population base has dropped from 140,000 down to 75. You have a speaker come up and talk about the Scranton Times. They sold that newspaper before it collapsed. You know, we just have the most corrupt public officials you could ever imagine, and I find you to be corrupt. And I've given the definition of corruption from this podium, and I think that people should look it up. And you know, when you have a person running licensing and inspections who runs an illegal property, a business on his property, and then somebody says, well, it's his son's business, I don't care whose business it is. And you know, when you walk around and you blame property owners who rent property, and then you try to make it sound like they're dragging the city down, that's not the problem. The problem is the city itself, its leaders. It's been that way a long time. I think that if you're having a problem with people who have rental property, you need to go to your state rep or your state senator and ask how somebody can live in a property for 4 months and not pay you, and smash every bit of it up and then leave. And you never get your money. Never. And you never get the damages either. And then, of course, you've got a city that's unwilling to invest in itself. And last week, you were talking about taking interest off of the recovery, the President Biden's great plan he has for everybody, and diverting that interest money somewhere. Look it. You can vote for President Biden if you want to, but he doesn't even know where he is. And when you listen to the hearings taking place in Washington about the fiasco of the pullout of Afghanistan, you have to ask yourself why we lost all those people in those wars. We haven't won a war since, we didn't even win Korea. We have our blood all over the world, and we have nothing to show for it. And we all walk around and celebrate. I don't know what we're celebrating. We haven't won a war since World War II, but we've killed a lot of our citizens. And when we look at our country and we have to look at the people we elect, I'm just wondering, have any of you ever read the Constitution or the Bill of Rights? Do you have any idea really what you should be doing for the people here in this city? Just any idea, just the wildest idea you might have, because talking to a stone wall that's not educated, and I'm not interested if you have a PhD or not, because that doesn't mean you're intelligent or educated. That just means that you could learn curriculum and pass a test, okay? But do you have raw intelligence? I mean, look at what's going on in the city. You can't even answer a question. You can't do an investigation. You have over 30 people who had their properties condemned by inspectors that aren't certified. You don't even care. You have inspectors walking around putting condemned stickers on buildings. They don't even know what they're doing. You're destroying your own city. It's just a sham.
Next, Joe, is it Beadle? B-E-A-D?
Yeah, I didn't sign it, sorry.
Okay.
And the next one, too.
That's, and the next one too? All right. All right, that's it for the signing list. Anyone else would like to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. Good evening. First, I want to address the funding of the capital reserve. That's great, but at the same time, you're leaving the pension fund underfunded. I get wanting a safety net, but I also get the intentional avoidance of properly funding the pensions, because as long as you avoid fixing it, you can charge 3 times the LST, the local service tax, from $52 to $156 a year. As far as I'm concerned, the intentional underfunding falls just short of racketeering. Making a massive rainy day fund at the same time you don't fulfill your obligations so you can grab an extra $104 a year in taxes is shameful. We have many failures in council. Mr. King last year promised legislation from this body on tax relief for the flood victims. He assured us it was no rush because we had a lot of time before the tax bills would be generated. Council assured people council would be the vanguard. And then they hid in the back row. Let's do nothing, as our inaction will help Pickleball Page get reelected. Then we had 2 issues of violence outside and inside the Veterans Memorial Stadium. But we don't want to address that issue because it puts the city and the school board in a bad light. So we moved on to contract for gang violence. Then a patrol because someone had a car stolen that they left unlocked out front of their home in Greenwich. We had a youth picked up for picking up a weapon outside of the school. But we have no juvenile lockups because this area was caught in a kids for cash deal. Then we moved on to Officer Gil Martin, who was shot in an unmarked car during a stakeout. All hard issues to deal with. So how did we? Prayers and public donations. Now we have a new thing to kick, the homeless. But that's okay, they tend not to fight back. 2 weeks ago, I was disturbed when Mr. Little explained how the homeless have to get paperwork to verify they're homeless. Last week, we saw a man who used to be somewhat coherent, but he tended to ramble while trying to get some help. Last week, he stood here for 2 minutes trying to focus on a single thought. He said he should have known fighting in court was a losing battle, but it was his only option. He stood broken. No one helped, no one cared, but that's the Christian thing to do to the unclean. We suddenly have a homeless advisory committee, but we have no idea where and when the meetings are and who's on it. Since it seems it's a decision-making body, it should be under the Sunshine Law. Or is it just words to look good? I guess we need more inaction in another study. I believe Jesus said these words, "Ship them out, not in my backyard." Oh, or was that someone else who decided it was easier to use the law to wash his hands of the matter? Last, we have a group of another nonprofit who came in, who wants to take free land from the land bank and make it non-taxable to help the homeless. Why would they do that? Because there's a lot of money in funding and sheltering the homeless. Why is the city not using the land or securing the land for homeless, building the equivalent of a hotel, tiny structures? How good would it look for the city to employ its own people and shelter its homeless, not just for 8 hours a day, and then collect a lot of the federal grants in Section 8 to pay for that? I'm not talking about under the Housing Authority, but under the city itself, and heaven forbid we build a useful long-term asset for the city. Put it near a water source, pump in the water for gray water, no need to use the water company for more than drinking. And once upon a time, cities had public bathhouses. No more. Now only Lecce and the water company can pollute our waters. There is so much to do, but we were served a lot of nothing. A lack of inspiration, short-sighted actions. It's disgusting.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident taxpayer. It was announced that we have a BBB city finance rating. And, you know, I will remind everybody that when you get elected to an office, you have a legacy that you have to cover. And some of them are well thought out laws or regulations, and some are not so good. And a low-income person was trying to get a low-income housing or something. And when North Scranton was renovated, it was disclosed that each apartment was $414,000. How many small homes could that have built, is my question, or much more reasonable situations. That went on for years. And part of the reason, I heard a business or commercial property bubble when Obama was walking into office after the crash that started in 2007, continued to 2008. One of our council members was a Democrat in name only, and he tried to pose the recession at that time as starting in 2009. Well, it didn't start in 2009, and he was out front destroying the credibility of the taxpayers with the protest against Paul Kanjorski showing up as our guest. You don't invite somebody and harass them. Now, driving in the city, about 2 weeks ago, I was at Spruce Street and Adams. So that goes west. 3 cars ran the red light. I mean, straight ran the red light. They were at the middle of the block and blew through there. And then some runners, the little twinkle toes around town here, they ran out when the right hand turned green. Now, I could have turned way before that and tried to slip it in. Well, tonight I was sitting there, and as usual, the right-hand turn was red. And when I looked to see and it turned green, I had a policeman right behind me. So how would that have worked out for me, you know? And on guns, I've always advocated that parents keep guns very secure. The Crumleys I think it was in Illinois, they bought their kid a gun, and they were supervising his use, but left it laying around. He went to school and shot a couple of kids, and they have both been convicted of involuntary manslaughter. So they're probably going to wind up with a couple of years in prison. And guess what? I don't care. They deserve it. Rag on the flag, my favorite subject. You know, we come in here and rag about the flag. Well, here is an article from Dan Mooser, and we're ragging about the flag and voting for people like this. Additional aid to Ukraine needs accountability and oversight. I mean, you think those people over in Ukraine were shooting their rifles in the air and yelling, Allahu Akbar, and complaining that they're out of ammunition. You know, so if Ukraine collapses, and it has to do with here because I hear it constantly, we're ragging about the flag. We wouldn't put that flag up. Well, that very person, one of them, the person that bought it, I am sure is not a supporter of any idea to ship Ukraine aid. And time again, I've had to hear the rag on the flag. It's just ridiculous. So please, if you're going to rag about the flag, why don't you support the cause that in writing, in votes? Thank you. Have a good night.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Council. Lynn Lebrowski, city resident, homeowner, business owner. So I got up here last week and I talked about a couple different things. The first thing I wanted to mention tonight was that I complained about going block to block and not being able to drive one block in the city without finding garbage or code violations, and how bad the city is starting to look with all the trash that's collecting around the city, and it's everywhere. So I happened to see online that they were doing a spruce up the city cleanup on Saturday from 11 to 1 over in Trips Park. So I felt like, well, if I got up there and talked about it, I should probably be about it. My husband and I showed up Saturday morning to volunteer to help clean up the trash in that section of the city. It was a great concept. We got a lot done that day. I was very disappointed to not see the mayor there. I was hoping to have a conversation with her, but I guess she wasn't able to attend that. So a couple of people from her office were there. I believe their names were Isaiah and Chanel. And so I was able to maybe give them a few suggestions if going forward with another cleanup. So I believe we collected well over 40 bags of trash in an hour and a half. And they talked about doing another cleanup in May, which is a pretty long way off from March. I mean, I believe we could do a trash pickup every week for the rest of the summer and probably maybe still not pick up all the garbage in the city. The bags weren't the sturdiest bags. They were makeshift contractor bags, but they were busting and ripping, so maybe going forward we could get something a little better for that. And we did come across quite a few hypodermic needles, so maybe a sharps container would be a great idea for the next cleanup. Also, I don't think it was advertised in the newspaper until Friday, and the cleanup was on Saturday, so that wouldn't have given anyone a lot of time with planning their weekend to maybe volunteer for that. You know, I did ask the two assistants that were there from the mayor's office if they had reached out to maybe any of the high school kids, college kids. A lot of them need community credits to graduate. Just a thought, just an idea. But the people that did show up, aside from my husband and myself, were two women from the Aaron Center, a guy from NeighborWorks, and he brought his young daughter to help. And I would say, other than the couple of people from the mayor's office, half of the crew was the recovery bank. And there was a photographer that showed up to take some photos. I mean, these people worked really hard. They collected almost 50 bags of trash, big contractor-sized bags, in just one section of the neighborhood, which happened to be the mayor's street, but okay. But anyway, so we did actually want to see where she lived, because I've never gone up that far, and we found her walking right about the time we were done collecting garbage. She had a little Garrity bag, and she had an excuse for not being there, but we did exchange business cards. I invited her to come visit our business, told her we had some other things we'd like to talk to her about. She has not reached out. There's been no contact, but again, the garbage cleanup was a great thing. We could have picked up a lot more garbage because it was 11 to 1, but we ran out of bags, so that was unfortunate. And also, I noticed that the people that were volunteering, they got a little thirsty and hungry, and there was nothing to provide for the people that were working for free. You know, so I know these people maybe aren't up to her photo opportunity, but I also know that you know, they worked really hard, and they're trying to stay clean, so maybe a little, you know, recognition would give them what they need to stay sober or whatever they have to do in their lives, instead of being made to feel like maybe they're not worth the photo op. So I did talk to someone from the newspaper today, and we'll see if they put it in the paper. But it was a good idea. I think we need a lot more of them, and if we could just get the word out more and maybe get more people involved. There was no DPW truck. They had us unload 50 bags of trash onto the curb and then back into my husband's truck because it had to go to a dumpster. But we were told where the spot was to leave the trash, so it was just a lot of extra work. They wanted you to go 7 blocks or 8 blocks and pick up trash and then carry that big heavy bag back to a designated spot. So like I said, my husband offered his truck and he went around and picked up all those bags, and we filled a pickup truck. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Marie Schumacher. I would like to report on what's happening to the lookout. I reported it before, and it got a little bit of work by somebody. I don't know who, but it is terrible. I mean, every morning I go down at, 307, and there's more rocks that have been knocked out and more paint. And I don't know why. I mean, that's something special. Maybe all you are too young to remember World War II and what the people came out and did for volunteering. But we need to do something. I mean, I assume there's police out at night. If they drove by every once in a while, it might make a difference. Or put a camera up there to see who's doing all that damage. But I don't know if they ever got anybody out there to look at what had happened, but now it's really, really a mess. So, okay. So on to another thing. Are you people satisfied with that we are getting our money's worth from our lobbyist? No. Okay, Mark, you're not.
I voted no for that. That's
Oh.
the responsibility of our elected officials.
Anybody up there happy enough with their lobbyist?
I think they're doing a pretty good job, yes.
Do you get a regular report?
We do. I think we gave one not too long ago.
We gave one last week.
Last week.
Okay. If you guys are satisfied, I guess that's what we have to put up with. Now, stormwater, that's something we talk about a lot. And I don't know what they're doing to handle the stormwater from that, I guess, a square block that the University of Scranton is putting a building on. That was all grass, and it was, it sucked up the water, all the stormwater. But do you know how they are treating the stormwater in that building?
Well, before construction, there are codes they have to go by, so.
Pardon?
There are codes and rules they have to go by, like anyone else. The university has to go by the same rules, so they will do it properly. On Jefferson and Mulberry, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've had other people who have done things under the same rules we have now, and they have not done anything to maintain. They had not had any plans to keep the extra water that would have gone into our system and get it out after. And the rules were the same. That's why I would like to have you guys look into what they're going to do with that stormwater and report it back to us. But if you don't want to do that, maybe there's some other ways, I don't know.
Well, as soon as they pull a permit, then they will have to start doing it the way it's supposed to be done. But they need to pull a permit first to start construction.
Well, that's got to be in the design. I don't know.
I certainly hope it is.
Okay. Does anybody know what's happened to the Wawa that was supposed to be built on Music Street?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. I heard there was a
I haven't had
lawsuit.
an update. I mean, I believe the project is scheduled to move forward. Maybe we can try to get some type of update on that.
I will, Mr. King.
I hope so. Now, yeah. Okay, I guess I'll quit until next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Voldenberg, could we also put the lookout on the list, see if there's anything that we could do up there? I know when Marie brought it up last year, some work was done.
They did do a cleanup, but I'll ask about the wall that's deteriorating.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, if DPW, like, if there's any way they could bring like some type of compressor so that they could power wash, any graffiti that might be up there. Appreciate anything they can do to help keep that area clean.
I'll mention that, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark Dennebaum, resident. I wasn't going to come up and speak, but I believe her name was Lynn. Kind of inspired me. So I just want to let everybody know that Saturday at 8:30 on Railroad Ave at the Sunoco across from the Heritage Trail, that's where the location is, we're going to go clean up the Heritage Trail at 8:30 in the morning. So if anybody's interested, anybody in this room that wants to go, we greatly appreciate it. It's a whole bunch of us are going to be there. So I just want to let everybody know. I'm not coming up to criticize anybody. I was just saying if you guys want to come down. We'd love to see you Saturday.
I did announce that at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
I came
thank
in
you.
late because, I'm never on time. So thanks.
Thanks.
Good evening, Council. Mike Mancini, Scranton. Mr. Smurl, first and foremost, I'd like to have a discussion with you. Over the duration of the last 2 weeks, I asked about the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority and the Scranton Parking Authority. I mentioned it. However, you didn't make a mention of it from your chair to anybody else. This is a very important issue, just not to me, but to the taxpayers and the citizens of the city of Scranton. It's a huge shadow that's hanging over our head. And to be frank with you, I think those who have sat in your chair, like Bob McGough, would be very disappointed. Every time you swing that gavel and it hits that piece of wood, you're making a decision, okay? We made a decision about NAOG and the pool complex. We're taking 2 pools, we're turning them sideways, shortening the complex to half of its size, and it's going to be a new complex. Less than 50 feet away, there's going to be people playing wiffle tennis, yelling pickle. All right? Since we already know about gang activity, what do you think that pool complex is actually going to look like? Okay.
I have pictures I can send to you. If you give me
Well, no, I'm just saying, in all fairness, there's going to be a bunch of people there. We have gang activity since 2008. It was a poor decision, okay? That being said, when we make poor decisions and we hire people from out of the area for administrative duties, head of different departments who have lack of judgment from not being here, this is the end result, okay? I'm going to talk to you tonight about a few things. After my son's passing, I started a Nevaeh project on his birthday this past November 20th. 2 of you that were present were at a town hall meeting. Brought awareness, education, prevention to the area. I'm going to expand that to include poor decisions. In the next month, I'm going to be having another town hall meeting. As long as you're present and you make the right decisions, you're welcome to attend that. It's going to be open to the public, and I think with poor choices with our younger people end up with poor results. We've seen that quite a bit lately. Let me change the subject to our roads. You know, this is one of the very last pieces of importance that we have left, one of our last remaining assets. Recently, I watched one of our DPW department employees filling the roads in. You know, they're hard workers, they truly are. However, you know, they're also smart, and, you know, I think that when they go to fill these roads, these potholes, and there's tons of them all over because of poor maintenance, poor decisions. Somebody from not even being from here and takes a straight shot up to Waverly. Call it what you want. A lot of people say the same thing. So what we want to do is we want to take a different look at our roads. All right, every time a utility company goes to make a cut, they back up a truck, call it a day. You have ordinances in place for the maintenance of these roads. I think that should include utility cuts to include that hot box that we've been discussing. They start at about $28,000 a year. All right, every time they go to make a utility cut, they should fill it the proper way. We should also make these manhole cover utilities responsible as well for their manhole covers. You have these ordinances in place, and force them. Force a letter to the utilities, have them correct the issue. Also, look at DPW as far as getting the right equipment to do this work. Now, those employees, they didn't blow out the hole. They just put the pavement in, pavement rake, that was it. They didn't pack it down. 6 months from now, that hole is going to come back. That's why we see these, because time management, not doing the job effectively, that becomes the end result. Thanks, pothole page.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
Just a couple comments. We mentioned the lookout. Can we get an update on the tax relief for the flood victims? I know that they were all identified and letters had gone out to all of them. I don't know, Attorney Gilbride, if you have any updates on that.
I do know the letters went out. The county was leading that charge on that. The names were provided by the city to the county of city residents that were impacted. The county's taking the lead because it goes through the assessment office, and therefore the county has to help them through that process.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let me see if there's... I was hoping to get to that cleanup on Saturday. My daughter was involved with the Scranton High basketball team, not as a player. She's the manager of the girls' team, and I was in Easton, so I'm going to try to make every opportunity to try to get down there Saturday over on, I guess I can't think of the name of the street where the Sunoco is. What is that? 7th Avenue? Railroad, right. So I believe that starts at 8 a.m. 8:30. Thank you very much. And thank you to any citizen who is willing to get out and help clean up. And this is always kind of like a rite of spring. And there's no doubt that we all play a part in trying to keep our city clean. So I appreciate everyone who's willing to volunteer to help pick up the trash in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Yeah, a few. Mr. King just talked about the tax relief piece, and Mr. Gilbride followed up with it. That's going to go through the county, so those properties were identified, letters have gone out, and they're going to appeal that through the county for that relief. Anything else we feel has to be in there, Mr. Gilbride? Because I think it wasn't clear maybe to the audience that anything was occurring for those properties.
No, the process is underway. The county has started. The individuals, I assume, have been reached out to. I know the information was provided by the city to the county, and now it's in the county's hands to follow through the process of the assessment.
Thank you. Next, it was brought up in public comment tonight about our refinancing that's going to come up. Mr. Voldenberg, if we could reach out to see if we did get an interest rate locked in, if we're still in the process of that rate.
I'll find out, sir.
Thank you. We didn't have an update on Ferdinand Street as far as I know, Mr. Voldenberg.
Not received as of today.
All right, thank you.
I'll follow up.
Thank you. One other thing, recently there was an article in the paper about the fire station on Ash Street. We haven't gotten too much information about that building. Can we reach out to the administration, see if we've had the building appraised, if it was something, I know it was discussed, possible sale of that building, but if there's plans for sale, if the building has been appraised, and what the next steps are with that building?
I will, sir.
Thank you. That's all, Mr. Smurl. Sorry, one thing. Ms. Schumacher, I did report out last week, but I'll do it again. So we did get, I have Councilman Schuster asked if the council may get an update regarding Nossaman LLP for the services to the city and their project performed since the last time we got a report. So they did, there was 8 activities that they did. One was EV chargers and the LCCC program. The second one was a recompete grant. The third one was a hydrogen hub possibility for Scranton. The fourth one was addressing the $243 million plus at SAAP. The fifth was abandoned mine issues. The sixth was EPA, PAWC, $200 million for Pennsylvania drinking water improvements. The seventh was the Amtrak line to Scranton, and the eighth was the SAAP. So they were the actions that that Nossaman had completed for the city since our last report. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I got a few. First of all, thank you, Lynn and husband. I apologize, I don't know his first name, for participating in the first city cleanup and reporting out some very good information related to it so we can do it better. We need better bags. It wouldn't hurt to provide some bottled water and maybe something to eat. But so thank you for bringing them concerns to us. Keep up the good work. I'm sorry, what? Oh, definitely a shark. That's very concerning. That was a great idea, too. The sharks contain. Yeah, that's. Right across the street from Westside High School. Jesus.
And a public service announcement, we called the police desk to find out what would be the proper way to get rid of those, and you can actually have the ambulance come and look them up.
Thank you, great. Second, so it's been brought to my attention that the cities of Scranton Police Department doesn't have any active shooter training or any firearms training associated with that for their police officers. I also do know that police officers have to qualify annually at the range, but you know, we all know that we now live in a not if but when climate and must provide our brave police officers with every available resource. So this training, if needed, you know, this is an inquiry. I'm just hearing this, that maybe we have some of it, maybe we don't, maybe not everybody has some training, but of course this training could be achieved at the Sorrente Center, which is supposed to be our training center. So Mr. Voldenberg, would you please forward these concerns to the police chief as an inquiry?
I will, sir.
Thank you. So I've also been told by some residents that there's some type of garage/repair shop that operates next door to REO Sales on Kaiser Avenue. And it's not part of REO. I have pics, Mr. Voldenberg, that I will send to you. It looks very unsafe and definitely not up to any type of code that they would have to be in compliance with. So, Mr. Voldenberg, would you please contact code enforcement and have them check this place out? The pictures that I received is pretty scary, so I'll forward them to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Remind me, please. And also on Scranton Street in West Scranton, it's on the side of the post office. There's been a car there, it's the 4th week now, all right? It's a blue car, I have pictures I'm gonna send you that. So it's an abandoned vehicle. It's, first of all, too close to the stop sign, which is one violation. It has no current inspection, which is another, and it has a flat tire. So could you please have the police, take care of that?
I will. I'll ask that it be removed.
Thank you. Also, a resident pointed out to me last week, and I had the opportunity to take a drive-by and take a look, on 12th and Hampton Street in West Scranton, and it's on the top of, we call over there West Side Hill. So if you were to pass the high school and go up West Side Hill, on the right is the baseball field where they practice. And up at the top, to the left, there's a hole. And I don't know if it's a huge hole. It's a very, very concerning public safety issue. I don't know why the hole's there, but first of all, it shouldn't be, and it's very dangerous. So there's some little plastic fencing around it, but I don't know if it's the responsibility of the water company. I don't know if it's the resident did something, or DPW it's a project in the making, or they're working through, but very concerning public safety issue. If you could please alert all three and see who's responsible for taking care of that.
I will, sir.
I also have pictures of that I'd be happy to send you.
Thank you.
And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. Last week, Mrs. Schumacher asked about the building on Lackawanna and Wyoming Avenue and the outside of it. It looked like it was being worked on for a long time. To follow up, this is the operation field supervisor, updated, and he said, Pioneer Construction is pouring in concrete in basement areas this week, should be completed by the end of this week. And then as soon as the restoration for the outside, Stafersky Paving, we'll put it on their schedule, weather providing, good weather, then they will do it. And they'll repair that as needed. The other one, 614 Willow Street, quality of life issues or citations were issued for appliances and garbage and pallets and stuff in the yard. And one more thing, Mr. Mancini, I do have updated pictures of the pools, of the construction of the pools. They are in the same direction. There are 2 of them, and there's also a splash pad, and it does take up the entire area that the original pools were in. But if you get your email address for me, I'll get you those plans and I'll send them to you. He asked me about the pool. And that is all I have, Mr. Voldenberg.
Mr. President, also,
Yes.
if I could just add, can you reach out to the administration and just get an update on the 2023 audit, just to see how that's progressing? I remember, like last year, we got held up by the sewer authority. I just would like to try to make sure that doesn't happen again this year.
We were advised it is in process, but I'll get more specifics.
Thank you.
Excuse me, and I do remember the new auditor coming and speaking to us, saying, you know what, we're going to provide updates for you, not like the last auditor. So maybe it's time. It is time.
I'll take care of it. 5B for introduction and ordinance, ratifying the confirmatory deed for property situate at 2811 North Main Avenue in Scranton, PA 18508, transferring the property to the City of Scranton from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
At this time, I entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement between the United States Department of Army Corps of Engineers and the City of Scranton, Pennsylvania, for an accelerated levee system evaluation pursuant to the National Flood Insurance Program.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion, item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to Council Number 14, 2024, an ordinance converting a certain portion of the 600 block of Deacon Street from a one-way street to a two-way street, from 625, 628 Deacon Street to its intersection with Sanderson Avenue.
You have heard reading by title, item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, you know, we had the public hearing for this tonight, and, you know, before we had the final vote, we're awaiting a report from engineering as you know, as the possibility of adding 2 more stop signs. So we're going to move it tonight, and then we'll see what happens by next week.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, filed to Council Number 11, 2024, creating a capital reserve fund to accumulate and disperse monies for capital expenditures as part of the city's long-term capital planning, and to provide for the administration of said capital reserve fund by providing for sources of funds to sustain the capital reserve fund, prescribing the use of capital reserve funds, and authorizing the submission of a capital reserve fund spending plan.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson of the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, filed to Council Number 12, 2024, ratifying the execution of a temporary construction easement agreement between Kathleen Kujarski and the City of Scranton to complete emergency stormwater debris removal following the September 9th, 2023 storm.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption, filed to Council Number 13, 2024, enacting the towing ordinance of 2024 by repealing and replacing the city's towing and storage code.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the ordinance to include the following 3 items. Number 1, under the proposed fee schedule, storage fee, remove the 30 minutes and change it to $60 per day, 24 hours. Number 2, under off-hours vehicle release, change from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and change it to 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. and change the fee from $35 to $60. And number 3, add a $45 administrative fee. The gate fee of $65 has been removed, so we'll just add an administrative fee of $45.
Second.
That's my proposed amendment.
I'll second the amendments.
Proposed amendment and a second?
On the question.
On the question?
Roll call.
Okay, so this will be to vote for this as amended. Roll call, please.
We have to vote on the amendment
You need
first,
a- you need a vote
and
on
then
the
refer
amendment,
back.
And it
Right.
needs to be a roll call vote.
Okay, so we'll vote on the first
For the motion.
for the motion.
All those in favor?
Mr. King?
Or you can do roll call.
So we're voting on the motion to amend?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. Now on the question.
Refer
Now you
back
can
to-
vote the amended.
Vote as amended.
Okay. Vote as amended now?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, Resolution Number 21, 2024, authorizing the allocation of $1 million of funds from the balance of interest accumulated on the American Rescue Plan Act funds received by the city to the Capital Reserve Fund.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, I think by creating, a capital reserve fund, by incrementally increasing taxes by 2% the last 2 years, by taking our bond, which was callable recently, and going out and refinancing that bond, which increased our S&P rating to BBB plus, and is going to give us well over $1 million in savings once we get that final percentage. I think those are the reasons why we were just recently nominated, and we have won the 2024 Governor's Award for Local Government Excellence. So there are good things happening in this city, and I'm proud to vote for this tonight because it's one more indication that we're doing right things financially in the city.
Thank you, Mr. King. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, Resolution Number 22, 2024, authorizing the allocation of $2 million of funds from the excess principal in the Workers' Compensation Reserve Trust account to the Capital Reserve Fund.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, Resolution Number 23, 2024, amending Resolution Number 253, 2023, further amending Resolution Number 188, 2023, and further amending Resolution Number 46, 2022, entitled Amending Number 175, 2021, authorizing, empowering, and directing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to appoint liaisons between the City of Scranton and Berkheimer, the duly appointed collector of earned income tax for the Lackawanna County Tax Collection District, for the express purpose of sharing confidential tax information with the district for official purposes, to update City of Scranton representatives authorized to receive confidential tax information, to include the position of senior accountant.
What is the recommendation of chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, recommend final passage of item 7F.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
7G for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 24, 2024, authorizing the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to upgrade certain traffic control devices in the City of Scranton and to make all necessary applications for such on behalf of the City of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7G.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7G legally and lawfully adopted.
Eighth order, no business at this time.
If there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.